Hello, Talking fight fans around the world. Welcome once again to another exciting episode of the Olympics, featuring Christian from the Friday Night Panel. And what have you got for us today?
Well, Graham, sorry, I'm technicals there. Since we talked a little bit yesterday about what's going on in the state, down in the States, and we were wondering what tournaments, if any, are actually happening down there. So I had a bit of a look this morning, as just based on what we were talking about yesterday. And with COVID precautions and restrictions varying pretty wildly across the continental US, obviously in spots where we're seeing higher numbers, we're not seeing large events planned anytime in the near future. However, that's not to say that boxing has been sleeping in the US. We spoke just, I believe, last Friday with Montel Griffin, for example, on the Friday night panel, who came to us live from his gym, where we could hear in the background one of his boxers rhythmically working a speed bag. And that was in Chicago. So we know that depending on where you're training and fighting, there are still some opportunities to be trading leather. In one of our first episodes, Graham, we spoke a little bit about how to get from here on the couch to the podium, and we did so in very generic terms. But it's worth remembering that the way to make it to the Olympics is to start off at tournaments at the local level. Get 11 bouts under your belt, so that you can qualify as an open boxer, and then you start climbing the ladder. Attend as many local, regional, finally national tournaments as possible to try to get on that medal stand. That being said, even with the ongoing pandemic, if you went to Team USA's website right now and search for sanctioned boxing events, you're going to find that events and tournaments are being scheduled and held pretty much every single weekend between now and the games. Usually several being held in different cities and different states at the same time. However, as far as large national tournaments go, there currently isn't anything scheduled to be held until the Golden Gloves tournament, which is supposed to be held in August in Texas. Now, that's at the local level, and I say local meaning the states only in this particular case. But that doesn't mean that athletes, as we know, are confined to boxing only at home. Team USA did send a delegation to the Strandja Cup this year. Of the 30 nations competing this year, only 2 teams were actually registered from the Americas. That's the team from the US as well as a team from Brazil. So things are alive and well. Things are still moving, but nothing huge coming up anytime soon. So shifting gears and looking a little bit back to Strandja Cup, I want to do a bit of a roundup of day 3 here and the latest. So the women's lightweight in the 60 kilogram category, it's a fantastic category at Strandja Memorial with several stars in the lineup. Finland's Rio 2016 Olympic Games bronze medalist Mira Putkonen was almost perfect at the international stage and met with another veteran rival, Switzerland's Sandra Brugger, on day 3. Putkonen landed several strong shots from each of the attacking position and advanced to the last 8, along with Brazil's defending AIBA Women's World Champion Beatriz Ferreira. Moldova's Dimitri Galagot was the silver medalist at the Minsk 2013 European Boxing Championships. And 8 years after his career highlight, he proved his very best in the men's welterweight, our 69 kilogram category in Sofia. The 29-year-old Moldovan was highly confident against Bulgaria's young Vesnev Kirkorov and won all 3 of his rounds in each scorecard. Galagot advanced to the semifinal event and will be meeting with Ukraine's powerful Yevgeny Barbanov in the Final 4. I apologize. We got a lot of names in this one, and most of them are unpronounceable for me. Ukraine's top star, Alexander Kirzniak, had more than 500 contests during his career, and he's one of the biggest names fighting at the Strandja Memorial Tournament this year. Ukraine's pride was the AIBA World Championship and EUBC European Championship back in 2017. While he's also a title holder in Bulgaria's biggest international event. Kirzniak has got fabulous conditioning, really, and has demonstrated that against Turkey's Serhat Gular, launching more than 40 attacks per round during the bout. The Ukrainian middleweight boxer won the contest unanimously and will be boxing in the last 4 with Moldova's Andrei Vreme. Uzbekistan's Asadkhuja Muidinkhujev. I can apologize for the pronunciations on these. He's only going to be turning 20 later this year, but he's already a strong boxer who has the potential to eliminate Brazil's AIBA World Championship quarterfinalist Wanderson Oliveira at the lightweight, that's 63 kilogram category. He is a virtuoso. He's been described as a virtuoso footwork and patient style. and where he was able to deliver clear success. His amazing teammates as well, Bobo Usman Bartarov, also moved forward in the 69 category. The defending AIBI world champion, Bakodur Jalov, in the 91 category, won his contest by a large margin of difference on day 3 as well. So it's a bit of a wrap-up of what's going on, and we're going to get a little bit more as we get into the semifinals and this starts paring down. We can get a little farther into each of these actual fighters, who they are and what they've been doing. They'll be fighting again tomorrow for the semifinals, and then obviously finals are going to be happening on Saturday. So you and I may have to have a short conversation on Saturday just so we keep current, Graham. But that's what's the big wrap up from day 3 over at in Sofia in Bulgaria, and a little bit about what's going on in the U.S. at the moment.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. You answered my questions. That's great.
I try.
I got nothing for you.
Yeah, you didn't expect me to answer your question. That's a little hurtful.
You rounded up the Americas on a regional level. Tournaments are underway. Amateurs are, maintaining the levels of practice and discipline. Great. Strandja's going forward, brought us up to speed on what's happening over there. As we know, Asia Oceania has already presented their qualifiers. I mean, the only continent that's really up in the air really is Africa, which is kind of confusing. But anyway, great.
No, so they've already had their qualifiers as well. Africa's already had their qualifiers as well. It's just these larger regional tournaments where people are trying to get those world rankings up that we've been discussing in an attempt to to latch onto one of those 53 spots that's being allocated across the world for that would have been decided during the Paris World Tournament in June had it not been canceled.
Right. So even those
who have sorry, go ahead.
Even those boxers from Nigeria who would have qualified aren't going to go. Are there spaces available from other countries within Africa then to take those spaces?
Well, no, because there aren't necessarily spaces allocated by country. You still have to qualify. So, for example, here in Canada, if we had really poor showings at the Americas tournament and none of our boxers were of a world rank, we may not have anyone fighting at Tokyo. That's not going to be the case, of course, but it does happen where sometimes we'll find, this is the first time since 1960 that the Nigerians aren't going to be there. And that's due to red tape at the end of the day. But there weren't already Nigerian slots that had been set aside for them. They still had to have each one of their fighters qualify in each of their respective weight classes in order to send someone.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. The qualifiers had taken place for the African continent.
Yeah, those took place in Senegal last year.
Of which the Nigerians surely would have had a team.
Oh, probably. Yep. They had a team. They just the team didn't get to go. Would they have qualified? Almost definitely.
So I'm just curious. So they just don't enter into any follow-up competition. They're just out.
They would have to have fighters who are already ranked pretty close to the top in world rankings in order to snag one of those positions that's being allocated instead of the World Paris tournament that's been canceled. So if they don't have someone who's already this far from already qualifying for one of those stops, going to one of these regional tournaments won't necessarily get them up to the level that they need to be. So we talked a little bit yesterday about several boxers out of Zimbabwe who are going to be attending regionals in several three separate regionals over between now and May. Right. And now these boxers who are attending, they're hoping to get one of those spots. So the people they're sending already would have had to have been ranked at a certain level to have any hope of qualifying for one of those Olympic spots at this point.
Correct.
So for the Nigerians, if they didn't have someone who's already ranked that high, then it doesn't make sense to send them to these other qualifying tournaments and hoping of getting those rankings up.
But this is the light bulb that went off on my head here. I'm just thinking potentially the Nigerians did have sufficiently ranked boxers that now other African countries know that are not going. So therefore, Zimbabwe's boxers can probably think, wait a sec, seeing the Nigerians aren't going, maybe that gives us a better chance. So therefore, we're going to send our guys who might not have been able to compete against the Nigerians. I got to think that the Nigerians were top ranked.
Well, I mean, they've been consistent again since 1960. They have been attending the games and qualifying for the games consistently, and they do have a larger pool of boxers to pull from in a more developed system than you're going to see in some other African nations, for sure.
Yeah.
But that being said, if they do have boxers, and we won't know everything until May when it's all announced at the end of May, right around when the actual tournament would have taken place, what all these rankings are going to turn into and who's going to be on the final card.
Okay.
But there's always a possibility if the Nigerians do have someone who's ranked that highly already, then they could be still sending someone to the Olympics based on rankings alone. But if they weren't, if this is what I'm saying, if they didn't have someone who was already that high, then it really doesn't matter. Because it's not like, oh, the Nigerians aren't going to be there. That's our chance to slide in. They didn't make it. If they don't have someone who's high enough up to qualify based solely on their rankings, then it's not that they had some kind of advantage, or there's no real advantage to other boxers from the region for the Nigerians not to show up. At least none that I can put together.
Okay, here's my understanding. I thought the continental qualifiers, having been decided across Asia, Oceania, and Africa, I thought a finite number of positions within the Olympics, therefore, had been decided and allocated to those continents or groupings of countries.
Absolutely, and we are definitely going to be seeing some people fighting who may not have qualified if the Nigerians had been able to make the trip to the qualifier in Senegal.
Yes, and so I was just kind of curious whether any country can fill those vacant positions if there were vacant positions left.
Well, so the vacant positions that are, because during the qualifier, those positions have all been taken care of. Now, would some of those positions have been filled by Nigerians had Nigeria made that trip? Almost definitely. But the fact that they weren't there doesn't mean that there's now vacant spots. So each one of the regions, as set up by the Americas, Asia, Oceania, Africa, and Europe, are going to be receiving a set number each of those qualifying positions that have been allocated based on ranking now. So it's not just going world ranking from the very top. We're going to be giving, out of those 53, it's going to be divided evenly, or as evenly as you can, an odd number, but they'll be divided evenly across the different regions. So there will be a set number of them that are allocated for Africa. So based on your world ranking and the fact that you're in Africa, that would be how that's chosen. Based on your world ranking and you're fighting out of Europe, then you would get one of the European ones. So you might see people who have a slightly lower world ranking than necessarily, picking up, say, an Asia Oceania spot than someone who picked one up in, based on their world ranking out of the Americas competition, or, Africa versus Europe. It really doesn't matter because it's going to be based on your overall rankings, but also your region at the same time. Does that make sense?
It's getting a little complicated for me. Might be my age.
Okay.
But I'm thinking the Olympics invites countries around the world to participate on a global level. Okay.
Yes.
To make it easy, they subdivided the world into continents or groupings of countries geographically based. From the knowing that not every country can possibly supply a top rank, otherwise you get that Eddie the Eagle scenario, where some fella who wants to put on a pair of boxing mitts and go fight till his heart's content. But that's not fair to the other boxers who've been training like crazy and really deserve a shot. So balancing off, if you will, the two equations of want and desire and who's truly deserving of a piece of the pie and a potential spot on the podium, the IOC says, okay, in order to go to the Olympics, you need to qualify. But because all these qualifiers have been either postponed or will not happen, they're leaving it up to the regions to fill those spots. Am I correct now in understanding that?
So two of the qualifier events are, we're at this point, we're still focused on that they are going to happen. It's just where and when is a little up in the air for the Americas as well as the European one. Actually, it was announced today that a top runner, we may need to get Andrew back on here again, because one of the top contenders now to hold the rescheduled European qualifier is currently Budapest. possibly due to their success on the recent tournament that they held. But right now they are one of the front runners to possibly hold that rescheduled tournament. So but again, we'll get into that later on or another day. So right now, let's just assume that Budapest is going to happen and that Buenos Aires is going to happen. We're going to have those two other qualifiers. That's still going to leave 53 spots open for the Olympics.
Right.
Those 53 spots are going to be divided among 4 regions.
Decided by
and it'll be your top ranked boxers in your region will get those spots. So X amount goes to Europe. The top boxers ranked in Europe will get those spots. X amount go to Africa. The top ranked boxers who have not currently qualified will get those spots. Same with the Americas, same with Asia, Oceania. So it's all going to come down to whoever hasn't qualified but is at the top of their game. If you've already got a qualification because you won that qualification in one of the qualifiers that either already has happened or will be happening, then that takes precedent. You've already qualified. You've got your Olympics. It's for the spot people who haven't, who's at the very top who hasn't qualified yet, and that's who's going to get those berths.
All right. Got it.
That brings us back to the whole, is this a democratic way to do things again? Because that speaks to your earlier point. This has been one of the concerns is this an actual fair and democratic way to do things? Because you may have a lot of really great top ranked boxers in one region, but only these guys get to go. Only the top 2 of those get to go. And then you have much lower ranked boxers on a world level who in a different region who also get to go to the same tournament because they live in that region, as opposed to the fact that they're just better than these other boxers.
Right.
Hard to say, and that's where that world tournament kind of comes in, because we've already gone through the regionals, and I go, yeah, I'm still one of the best in the world. Let's get out there. Let's figure this out. So now, yeah, you might see some boxers who wouldn't have otherwise qualified for the Olympics based on a world ranking who might actually get a trip now because of it. And some people who might have done well, all right at that world tournament are going to get sidelined because they're just not high enough in their specific region.
Right. Yes, it is complicated. But here's my bottom line. I do trust that the best of the best will compete at the Olympics in July in Tokyo in boxing. All right, Christian.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I'm confident. It's just all these hurdles, more or less, that are confusing, but confusing for a reason. They want to find out who is the best among the best, given these parameters from around the world.
Well, that's why I spend my mornings reading through all this nonsense, so that we can try to figure out how it is they're actually figuring this out, or at least claiming that they've figured these things out.
Right. Excellent. Thanks very much. I appreciate all the hard work you're doing, and I'm sure our viewers do as well. Having said that, remember to like, share, subscribe. And if you're subscribing, remember to ring that bell, get our notifications, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you.